Hey, thanks for tuning in today. My name is Jeremy Nicolaitis, and I'm the founder and CEO of Golden Octopillar, and we are on a mission to double the sales of 1,000 businesses in the next 5 years. And one of the ways that we're doing that is we're hosting an extreme business makeover. This is a 5-day challenge where we get together for 1 to 2 hours a day for 5 days in a row, and we implement a framework and a process for predictable sales and to get you on a path to doubling your sales in the next 90 days. So if you're interested, definitely see the link below or head over to goldenoctopillar.com/EBM. That EBM stands for Extreme Business Makeover. Head over there, get signed up. I'd love to see you on the next challenge so that we can get you on the path to doubling your sales and make you one of the 1,000 businesses that we're helping in the next 5 years. Now, beyond that, what you're about to watch right now is a great interview I did that's part of a series where I reached out to successful creative entrepreneurs and business owners to first talk to them about how they managed the COVID economy and how, when the world shut down, what they did with their businesses to stay successful and what they would do if they had to start over. If they were somebody that wanted to take their side hustle and make it their main hustle, somebody who was struggling because what was going on with the economy, how can they help their business? What are the things that they would do? So it's full of great stories, great tips. These are great people and they're sharing their knowledge and their experience. And I'm super grateful for their willingness to be a part of this. And definitely watch them all because all the businesses are different. And some of them may resonate with you more than others. So check it out. Definitely also check out their Instagram profiles and Facebook and follow them and let's just share some love. So hopefully you enjoy this one and all the other ones. All right. Thank you. Hey, everybody. I am super excited to introduce you to Mohamed Chahin. Mohamed is an Egyptian senior designer and 3D artist based in Berlin, and he's been freelancing since 2015 and currently sees no end in sight. Mohamed, thank you for being here today. Can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. I've started doing design since like 2015. I started doing the generic design stuff. So yeah, a little bit of branding, some simple motion graphics. And then, after a year or so, I decided, hey, the 3D is going great right now. It was like, at the beginning of the AR scene. So I decided to learn more about this 3D stuff. And here I am.
That's awesome. I love your stuff. I actually still have your Instagram open right here. I like it. It's what really like drew me in. One is just like the colors, like the color palette. Like I could see this like color palette, but also this like young, like energetic, modern feel to it. I dig it. I feel like everything that I'm looking at, I also just want to go buy. Like, is it a like like product wise? Like that would be cool sitting on my shelf. I guess that's like the cool thing about 3D, right? Like just working in a 3D environment. And for those listening or watching, we're talking about 3D in the sense of computer generated images. I have a big stereoscopic background, right? So when I say 3D, I'm talking about where you put on the glasses and, things are flying around at you. And I always people usually assume I'm talking about what you do, not what I do. And so I always have to clarify, but anyways, so so the stuff looks awesome. I dig what you're doing. What is, the whole thing about this is to talk about COVID, right? And like to give some background, but before we dive too deep into that, what is just like the normal workflow for you? Like what's a normal like project and time frame and just like what, work life is like for you?
Well, it depends on the project, but there's like the constant stuff. It's like, you get like a project request from a client. You see if you have a time in your schedule. Then just ask for the requirements, file formats, maybe deadlines. Mm-hmm. And then the client just expects some kind of estimate for the budget. Yeah. Once I have everything ready, I just send it over. Once I get the green light, then I start doing the project. If it's something like a 3D character or some illustrations for a website, I start with a simple sketch, send those over to the client, get the green light on those, and then start with the 3D because I don't want to create like a full-on 3D character and then end up with like, hey, maybe that's not what we're going with. So let's just go back to square one.
Right. Yeah. I have found, from my experience in just the creative world and dealing with clients, managing
expectations, but also just managing the iterations, right? How do you do the least amount of work as possible to get to what they need, right? And they, I think it's important, like you're saying, let me just do something. And like, I'm assuming when you say like some quick sketches, like you're talking about quick, I'm just making sure that the idea, I can communicate the idea on paper and here, look at this, right? And see like, is this the direction you want to go, right?
Yeah, that's how it always is. Even like if I'm not doing like this typical 3D stuff, even if it's like a branding for a certain company, I just usually just send over like the sketches, prototypes, whatever. First, once I get the green light on those, I'd be like, yep, let's move to the next step. Because I don't want to end up in an endless feedback loop, basically.
Yeah. Do you find yourself in that situation often where somebody's wanting you because also, right? Because like what we do is subjective, right? There is no, like when we're talking about art, there is no wrong, right? And it's just like, well, what do you want? You got a client. And so have you ever gotten down the road where you've gotten everything approved each step of the way, and then maybe they're starting to see some of the polished 3D work and they're going, you know what? I kind of wish it was like this, or they changed their mind so much so that you have to go back, to modeling.
Well, it happens a lot, but yeah, it usually depends on the client. So sometimes you just like, hey, I can do it all over again, but we're gonna, I don't know, rediscuss the budget maybe, or sometimes, to be completely honest, I get weird comments because, like, you know how it is. Like with visuals, any creature with two eyes can give you feedback, basically.
Right.
So yeah, like I worked with like the biggest client, and then I get like a message from him in the morning saying like, "Hey, I showed this to my wife, and she doesn't like the green." It's like, oh well, I have been doing this for like a few years, but he asked the wife. So. But yeah, it happens. And then, you just have to discuss that. Yeah, just say, I've been doing this for a while. I chose this color or this shape for a reason. And then you explain. And yeah, it's either, yes, we're good, or maybe we have to find some middle ground.
Yeah. And, because I think it's an important conversation, right? I think a lot of creatives, and I know from experience from when I was, just going through the course of growing over time, that those are uncomfortable conversations in the beginning, right? And it's like, hey, I need to charge you more money. It's basically where this conversation that you know where the conversation is going. The conversation is going, you're taking us in a different direction, which is going to take more of my time and more of my energy, which is outside of the scope of work that we originally discussed. And you have to pay for that. Now, I've gotten comfortable over the years having that conversation. And I think that for me, I start to talk about the project up to it, and I'm sure some of them know what's coming. Some of them don't know what's coming. And hey, this is what we've discussed. This has been going great. I see this. If we do want to go down this road, which is okay, like there's no problem. We just have to talk about and discuss, compensation, because there is going to be an overage, right? And do you find yourself when you do have that conversation, how's the reaction from their side?
Well, yeah, I think like the first few projects that I took were a bit shaky when it came to this like serious conversation. But yeah, over time, I just decided to say it like beforehand. It's like, hey, this is going to cost whatever for like 2 iterations, and then I'm going to charge extra. So they already know there's just going to be like 2 iterations, and then, oh, wait, we're going to discuss like how long it's going to take, and also like the compensation. So yeah, and that makes it a lot easier if you just say it beforehand. So yeah,
I think that's a really good point. And I do the same thing. You put it into that agreement in the beginning, right? And you have some kind of clear boundaries. And I think for those that might be struggling with this, or that are growing and trying to get, that are afraid of these conversations, you're going to have most of the time. And let me just put this out there, because I asked the question, the original question is, how do they respond? For me, 9.5 times out of 10, the conversation's fine. Right. And it's usually because you're delivering, right? If you're holding up your end of the bargain, it's easy. That being said, there are human beings that might not be the greatest of human beings, right? They might not be as friendly as we would hope, and they can be difficult, and they're going to push back. But if you have it in your contract, if you have it in the agreement, and before you even start, you say, I have, you've got 2 iterations, right? And I do the same thing, like each stage, like this is the stage, this is what's expected. And like, once we hit those milestones, that's considered done. And if you want to go backwards, there's a cost for that. The other thing I would add is that, as these problems come up, like as you deal with these situations, these become things that go into the next iteration of your contract, right? The contract is supposed to protect both of us, right? It's supposed to protect you and supposed to protect me. And so when you have these issues, don't just like let it go, put that in and make sure it doesn't happen again, right? Because here's the problem. We're all worried about like testimonials or comments or bad reviews and bad word of mouth, right? And it's like, if somebody's just having a bad day and they can be out of line, well, then what do we do with that? So we got to make people happy, but we can't be slaves to the client, right? It needs to be a mutual relationship, and I always describe it as like a team, like we're working together to get a project done. You've hired me to be a part of your team for a certain period of time, So that's cool. That's cool. So let's talk COVID a little bit. What was life, leading up to COVID, and then what has it been like for you? And should I assume that you've been in Berlin the whole time?
Yeah, I basically relocated to Berlin. I think February 2020. It was nice, but then it was just like I spent a month in Berlin. I was like, oh, Berlin is quite nice, and then boom, lockdown. So yeah, that was something.
Yeah. So before we even talk about business. Yeah, because we're from all over, we're all from different parts of the world. Mm-hmm. What was COVID like there? What was daily life? How did it change from when you arrived to a month later, 6 months later, and today?
Yeah, it was, it escalated pretty quickly. I came here, it was just like, hey, there's this virus in China somewhere, and we don't know anything about it. Are you scared? And everyone was like, no, it's fine. It's just gonna go away anyways, and like no time. But then I was just going to the office every day. Everything was going fine. And then 1 month after that, everyone was working from home. Strict lockdown. No one was sure what's gonna happen. So it was really weird, and also. That's just like when it came to work and stuff. Yeah. But even like everyday life, like you can go grocery shopping, for example, but you cannot visit a friend, or you can, but like with certain limits. So it was really weird. Yeah,
it's funny. It's yesterday. Do I have it? I have them right here, right next to me. Yesterday, I bought Post-it notes. Right. And it was so funny because I picked my son up from school, and then we were going to go to the park, and we were on the way to the park, and we needed some maple syrup. We had a maple syrup, and our house goes through a lot of maple syrup. Right. And so I'm like, hey, buddy, we're just going to stop real quick. I got to grab some maple syrup. And then I just go in and grab it, and we're getting ready to leave. We got our masks on because you still got to wear your mask and everything. And, then I'm like, oh, I saw like the office supply aisle. I'm like, hold on, I got to grab these. And I came out of the store. I'm like, wow, that was so weird. Just like buying something, like walking in and buying something, which was so normal. And now it's like, normally I go on my phone or my computer and I'm like, hey, I need some Post-its. And like a day or 2 or 3 days later, it shows up at my door. Right.
Oh, yeah.
There was an odd excitement about buying something as silly as Post-it notes, right? And so I thought that was so funny.
Yeah.
So what is life like now, right? We're a little over a year after this. What's life there like today?
Well, we still cannot do the normal stuff, but I think it's easier for us to accept the whole situation because like we've seen the lockdown, we've seen how it can come again, like the second wave, the third wave, and stuff like that. And also, I think we're kind of getting used to home office and stuff because early was the first lockdown that hit hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, like even for me as an artist, as designer, like you'd say like, hey, I can stay all day just inside doing art and design. That's like pretty awesome. But no, like just give it 2 days or 3 days tops,
Right.
and then yeah, your little like part extrovert self, you'll be like, no, I need
Right.
like to see some people, talk to some people, anything. So
yeah. It's kind of it sounds very similar to what we've been dealing with here, right? It's like as you were talking about the waves, I was thinking like of a family member, a friend who when they're leaving, they just keep waving, and they're like, you could stop waving, just like you could go, stop waving at me, right? The waves that just keep happening. But yeah, we're here in LA. We're just at this point. We're slowly opening back up. We're in the last kind of tier of restriction. And then, a month from now, they're thinking that everything will kind of be full open, assuming, right, there's not another wave or something doesn't happen. Because I know there's, I'm working with people in India right now, and it is so bad there, so bad.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'm working with another group of people in Australia, and they're just like, it's non-existent, right? And like the extremes, right? And I interviewed someone last week, somebody in Canada, and they're on full lockdown right now. So it's interesting just to hear what everybody's dealing with. So let's talk business. So you moved, you were there, you're working, and what did COVID do? Like I know you said like, okay, you can work from home, but there must have been a transition. Did it affect your business? What did business become like with COVID?
Well, yeah, at first, like just the home office kind of thing. But also, I noticed that there was a lot less jobs out there. It's not, like to me, at least I had my job, but for others, if they were looking for jobs, it was like way less. I mean, for designers, at least, that's what I always look at on LinkedIn. So that was one thing. I think the freelancing gigs kept coming as normal. But yeah, like I'm not sure because like some other people told me like they're having less clients approaching them and stuff. So yeah, it's like it was a little bit weird, but not from like a freelancing perspective, but more from like permanent job, like full time perspective.
Yeah, I think on the freelancing, and it's interesting when we first started messaging each other leading up to this. You're like, hey, it's if you can, like, if freelancing considered to be like business and entrepreneurship, and for me, absolutely 100% it is. I think it's just a title we give ourselves, and it's usually we give it to ourselves or it's given to us by the industry, right? But a freelancer, you're working for yourself. You're doing a service for somebody for money, right? And I think a lot of people who are in the freelance space should own that, like I'm running my own business, right? Because if you start thinking, if you have that mindset shift, right, then you could start thinking about, growth. There's no reason why you couldn't take on a project, and you may do this. I'm just using you as an example because we're talking, but like, there's no reason why you couldn't take on a project that was, 10 times the size of a normal project you take, and then hire additional freelancers, right? And hire them based on that and build a team. That's kind of how I first started. I was doing freelance work, like how I started into like entrepreneurship and running my own businesses and stuff, is I was doing freelance work in the visual effects industry, right? For movies and then also in 3D. And then one day somebody came to me with an opportunity of like, hey, can we do this? And it was like, whoa, this is really big. And the time frame was a little too short for me to do it myself. But I was like, yeah, I could do this, right? I could put together a team of people who are also freelancing and working from home. So I don't have to pay for the overhead of electricity and a building rental and all their equipment. And they do it, and we come together as a virtual team. There's a lot of freedom in that. I dig it. And that's, that was like, oh, okay, right. It doesn't just have to be something I can do. I can go after stuff that's much bigger. Cool. So it sounds like you were fortunate enough, that you were able to keep working, right? You had steady work coming in, and even on the freelance stuff was still coming in. And I've heard that too. I've heard a lot of people say, a lot of people have gotten back to me. It's like, it's kept coming. which is great. And even on the fine art side, they've been have been successful as well in that people continued to buy art, if not bought more art even more, because they were stuck at home, right? Mm-hmm. And so I've been pleasantly surprised hearing how creatives have managed very well and adjusted what they've been doing through this whole thing. So if somebody was going to start their own business, right? They were going to start freelancing on their own, right? Okay. And say they were just starting. I'm just trying to throw a few different types of people into this so that they could relate to it. So some people may have been just starting a freelance gig, and then they didn't have the experience or the means to get work as you do yourself. Like you already had that in line and set up and running, or they've been working for somebody else and now they're out of work, right? Mm-hmm. What kind of advice would you give them in kind of getting up and running and getting to the point where you're at today?
Yeah, sure. I do have advice when it comes to whether freelancing and also full-time, because actually I switched jobs in the lockdown period. Mm-hmm. When it comes to freelancing, what I noticed, because also back in 2018, I was like a full-time freelancer, just having projects out there gets you more projects. So whenever I felt maybe I wasn't approached by tons of clients, or maybe I was waiting for a good project or something, I just take a day or two to create a good personal project, not even something that someone asked me to do. I'd be like, hey, maybe I should create a brand for, I don't know, skateboards or something. And then once I have this polished and everything, I post it everywhere. And I mean everywhere, Behance, Dribble, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. I just post it everywhere. Once the work is out there, you'll find some clients saying hey, I saw this. What you did was whatever the project was. I want similar stuff, but for my brand or something. And also it works. For example, if I'm working on a lot of 3D stuff and I'm hey, I just want to switch gears a bit, maybe work on UI. I just do a proper UI shot or a project and post it. Then I'll find some clients saying hey, we saw the UI project. So it's as long as you're putting whatever product that you have out there, someone who might there's a very high chance that they'll reach out just to make something similar to their company or startup or brand. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, I think that's extremely valuable and great advice, right? It's just put out there what you want, what you want to do, do the work you want to get, right? And if you don't have, if you're just starting out, you could do the work for free for somebody, right? Or you can just do it yourself. The only reason why I like the addition of doing it for low cost or no cost, and I don't recommend, people underselling their value, right? I think everybody should probably just raise their prices anyways. But when you're starting out, you need a few things. You need when people to look you up online to see the stuff, right? They need to see it, right? And then the other thing is, if you can get a testimonial, right? If you can get somebody to say something amazing about you, that is so powerful, right? That is something, it's basically somebody else is selling you, which takes the sales out of it, right? Because that's the other thing. It's as creatives, we don't want to be too selly. And also, I think it's easier for us to post good looking images online, right? More than other industries, because we like to share. It's look how awesome this is, right? Let me check this out. And you're proud of it and you want to share it, right? Yeah. And so you put it out everywhere. But if you can get a testimonial tied to something, that really, I think really helps. So you're posting this stuff everywhere. What are you saying, right? What are you saying? Are you saying stuff in the captions? What are you doing with hashtags? I know you're putting it on all these sites, but and it works. Clearly it works, right? Because we're talking about it. But how do people even find your work on those sites?
Well, of course the hashtags and stuff help. When it comes to the genre of the work, basically, if it's 3D, maybe it's an illustration. Motion is a big thing. If I post an illustration and of course it looks beautiful, it will get likes and stuff. But if it's animated, it's maybe more exposure. So it's stuff like that you find out by trial and error, basically. And I find a lot of people who are just starting was design or art or something, and they're kind of afraid to put the work out there. Like, yeah, but to be honest, like if you ask me, like what's the worst that can happen? You're just gonna receive some negative feedback. Well, it's not negative. You just receive feedback, so you'll actually work on your project a bit more and make it more beautiful, or maybe correct some stuff. So yeah, I don't see like a downside to any of it. Is you just post it. I know you spend some time on it, post it, you get exposure, and then yeah, it will help, or you'll improve on your craft. So yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of like really key things you said there that I agree with 100 trillion million %, right? One of them is you just talked about like the trial and error, like you put it out there, right? You took action and you put it out there and you see what works, right? And then you start talking about how you can get feedback, right? And you're absolutely right. All of that is positive. Right. We talked about like dealing with people in the contracts and how do you iterate your contracts to protect yourself? Well, you put yourself out there to do a job, you interact with a client, the client then becomes difficult in a certain way. So you take something and you put in your contract in the beginning. You don't get to have that super polished contract that takes care of you without doing jobs and having that experience. So then you take your work, right, and you put your work out there. And you get feedback. Now, of course, there are people in the world. We talked about it earlier. They're just, let's call them bad humans, right? There are bad humans out there that are dealing with something, and we can't help them with what they're dealing with. But for whatever reason, like they're throwing rocks at us, right? And so that we just have to pretend like they're not there. We can't engage and think. And I know it's hard, especially for creatives, because we're sensitive about our stuff. But you just got to let that go. And then look at the other stuff. Because you're right. If somebody gives you any kind of feedback, and again, it's subjective, but you're kind of testing the waters. You put something out there and you see how people react. I think when you put stuff out there, especially for work, well, people will tell you, hopefully, why it's not a good fit for them. Right. And some of it might be a quality level. Right. I mean, there's quality in the 3D space. Right. Like I can look at your stuff. I keep looking over. It's just right here on my screen. I can look at your stuff and I can see the qualities there, right? And so there's no question, but the quality in the beginning probably wasn't there, right? It took some time.
Definitely.
You got to be bad long enough to be good, and you got to be good long enough to be great, and you got to be great long enough to master something, right? And you can't go through that and grow without trying and doing and putting yourself out there. I think that's great. And for me, the trial and error, it's stuff like this is looking to talk to people and hear from people who are just down the road from you, right? The people that are farther ahead than you, and they don't have to be leaps and bounds and decades ahead of you and masters in their field. They just have to be farther ahead of you to help you, right? So that you can shorten your time, right? And they're just like down the path, they're hiking on the same trail, and they're like, hey, look out for that hole right there, right? And you go, oh, thanks. And then you don't spend the time dealing with that hole, and you just tiptoe around it and keep going.
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
And that's what, like, your little value bombs right here are that. So, okay, so this is great. So now let's break it down a little bit further for them. And if there was stages of execution, like if we were say 1, 2, 3 phases, or the first 30 days, the second 30 days, however, I don't know if you think about it in that way at all, but we know that they have to take action and do it and put their stuff out there. How would you recommend, like, the order in which they take those steps?
Yeah. Well, of course, like everyone is different, but like for me, at least, I'm a little bit all over the place, a little bit ADHD-ish kind of. So I put like a to-do list just to know, hey, let's say I have like 2 weeks and I want like the best project out there. Well, if I can do 2 projects in 2 weeks, let's make them 2. I just put points, because at least that would just, I just know, hey, and like today I'll finish like 2 points and that will be it. And then I can just chill the rest of the day. And then, just plan ahead whatever project you're working on. If it's like a personal project, just to get clients in the first place, just plan it. Like I just said, I'm just going to work on a brand. What is it? Like a brand for I don't know, juice, for example. So yeah, I'll plan the whole brand, like the logo, like the illustrations, the palettes. So just make it super professional. Of course, references help a lot. Like all of my work, I just go into Pinterest, just look at tons of images. Even if it's not really what I'm looking for when it comes to the project style or like the genre of the work, just the maybe I'll be inspired by the palette or maybe an idea. So yeah, just like the simple stuff. And then just execution. Was execution, like to me at least, just put your headphones on, some music, and yeah, just be in the zone. And once you have the project ready, post everywhere. Like that's my only, just post it everywhere. Behance, Twitter, whatever. Just as long as it's out there, you'll get into that design community. You'll get feedback. Hell, sometimes even like when I'm working on a project and something that I can't figure out myself, I just ask people on Twitter. It's like, hey, I'm stuck here. Like, was this software? How can I do this? And the design community is always super helpful. So we just, get in there with them. And then after that, the clients will come knocking.
Yeah, I like it. I think I get it. I understand. I get what you're saying. And a little bit is about, it's just building momentum, right? You gotta start and get that momentum and get that stuff out there. And I think, you said, okay, if I got 2 weeks, I think it's important to put a deadline on something, right? So say, okay, this is the project. If I'm starting from zero, I need to do something. So I'm either going to get lucky and get that paying job real quick, but that's just like the stars aligning for you. Maybe I can find somebody and offer my service for free, or I'm just going to do it. Whatever it is, you got to start with something, but give yourself a deadline if you don't have a client, because you may never finish. You're going to be waiting. Because I think, when we talk about taking action, if we wait for everything to be perfect, right, it's not going to happen, right? Now, we do need it to be commercially viable, right? Like we need it to be something that somebody will buy, so that the quality has to be at a certain level. But there's a level of subjectivity in your tweaks, right? Is it, you were talking about like, the wife said, make it green. Is it like this shade of green or this shade of green or this shade of green? Like I wouldn't get caught up on that as long as your palette makes sense, right? It's like it works for whatever you're creating and the feeling that you're trying to get across, right? And you put your plan together and you execute and you make that, right? And then you start putting it out there. And I'm just like kind of reiterating what you're saying, right? And you put it out there and you're putting it out everywhere and you're hashtagging it and you're getting involved in the community. And it's at that point, right? I think it's at that point that things start to change. And you may not realize it. And you're at home by yourself in your own little creative bubble, doing this thing, thinking like, what am I doing? And you start to second guess yourself, but you got to get to the point where you start to interact with the community, right? With other artists, with clients, and it'll happen. It'll come together and you just keep putting it out there and putting it out there. And people will find it. I think that's the way the world works now. You got to get into marketing momentum, right? Like you're marketing yourself and you got to do that. And then it'll start to happen as long as you're always putting stuff out there and you're always interacting with each other. Because then what starts to happen is other people start to talk about you, right? And it's like, hey, now like I'm getting marketing momentum from people that's not even coming from me, right? It's like, hey, I know a guy, or I saw this, or check this out. So I think that's super valuable. And it's I think for you and me, it's like, it seems straightforward. You got to build, you got to do it. But these are all like little pieces that people get stuck at. And I think, the time is huge. You got to set the time. And I think people get stuck on perfection and then taking action. Right. And then they don't do it. And you gotta do it. And the other thing I think I really like what you said, and I agree 100%, is just reference and like getting out there and absorbing. Right. I think sometimes artists and creatives feel like afraid to look at stuff or acknowledge the fact that they're consuming, because they don't want to be like, oh, I'm original, like, I'm not like this, I'm like that. And it's like, but I don't think you're getting rid of your originality by doing that. I mean, look, I don't know about you, like you go to art school, you go to the museums to talk about it. You learn about other artists when you're being educated. Right. And It's just like somebody, like an athlete. An athlete will study other athletes from the past, from the current time. They'll watch them. They'll try different things. And the same thing for us. You know what it is? I did a talk once, and I called it the kaleidoscope method. And it's like, you know, like a kaleidoscope, or it's like shards of glass and plastic, and you look through it, right? And you see these different patterns. Well, it's like that, the piece at the end, and it has all these little compartments like a pie, and there's all these different pieces. But those are the things we're looking at. Like you said, you go to Pinterest, you're like, oh, I like this color palette, I'm gonna put it in here. And ooh, I like what this person did with their 3D modeling here, I'm gonna put it here. Oh, the lighting from this person is awesome, I'm gonna put it here. And then you have all the stuff in your DNA and everything that's like original to you, and you put that in here. And then you spin it all around, you mix it all up, and you look through there, and something brand new that nobody's ever seen before is right there, right? But it's relatable, right? And people go, man, I like that. I don't like, have I seen anything like that? It seems so familiar, but I've never seen anything like that before, because it's super original, because it was created by you, right? And I just think it's important. I like it. You got me excited about it. I hadn't thought about the kaleidoscope method in a while. That's super awesome. I'm digging all of this. Is there anything else? Is there anything that you think we missed, of like any kind of tidbit or advice you would give to other creators out there?
Just keep creating. It's not like a must, because one of the mistakes that everyone makes are just like, I have to create something like today. I mean, if you're already don't have the energy to do something, maybe take one day off or something. But then you gotta just keep the ball rolling, kind of. Just to that's what I say was the to-do list. Just having to check something on that list every day, that would help you just to finish that project and get it out there. Just keep that ball rolling, I guess.
Yeah, no, I love it, and you're absolutely right. Don't put so much pressure on yourself that it makes it not fun. Right. I mean, the whole point of create and live free, right, and doing this is that there's an element of freedom to it. And I think you when you're talking about energy, if you don't have the energy for something, or if the energy is not there, that means you need to recharge it, right? And you need to do whatever you do to recharge your energy. Some people, it's take a nap. Some people, it's go for a run. Some people, it's get together and party with their friends. Whatever it is, do what you got to do to recharge, to come back, to be the best that you can. And you start to integrate your life into what you do, right? And that, to me, it just becomes the freedom, is that the work isn't like work. You're creating something that sets you free. And if you're creating something and you don't feel free, and you're shackled by time and pressure and money and other people, then it's not working. And it's not that your business or your freelance career isn't working. It's just the way that you're managing isn't working it, and I chunk time as well. Like I like say, okay, I got to do these things, but what's the most important things that I have to do today? And I get them done. And it's not a full day, right? Like I probably, my work day, right now it's probably, 5-6 hours a day, 4 or 5 days a week. But because I'm focused on what matters most, I'm getting more work done than some people that work 60 hours a week, because they bog themselves down with too many items. Right. And they're just happy to be busy. And, I'm not into that. I'm not into busy work. I like to do the fun stuff. Well, Mohamed, this has been awesome, man. I really appreciate you taking time and sharing your experience with everybody, and dropping the value bombs and the advice. It's super awesome. Where can people find you? Where can people find all this stuff that we're talking about?
Yeah, I'm all over the place. If you just go Dribble, Twitter, Instagram, I'm out there. And it was fun just talking about it. And of course, if we can do this again, or if anyone needs anything, the design community is all out there. Just ask, and someone will reply. So
Cool. Awesome. Well, we will be sure to put all your links and all that stuff up on the video and the posts and all that stuff, so everybody can. You're just a click away.
Cool.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, and
No
have a good evening.
Yeah. Okay. Have a good rest of the day then. See ya.
Hey, so hopefully you enjoyed that interview as much as I did, and you're checking out all the interviews. And remember, if you're looking to grow your business for any reason, head over to goldenoctopillar.com/EBM. That's EBM for Extreme Business Makeover, and we'll get you on the path to doubling your sales in the next 90 days. And also, don't forget to head over to Instagram and Facebook and follow all these amazing business owners and keep checking out what they're doing, because they're great people doing great things, and I want to share as much love as I can with them. So thanks, and have a great day.